The National Disability Insurance Scheme has been heralded as one of the great legislative success stories in recent times. However, its implementation here in South Australia has been anything but smooth. Disability South Australia has recently announced they need to find $60 million in funding over the next 3 years to cover the increasing costs of providing services. To discuss this further, I have Disability South Australia's Executive Director, Dr. David Caudrey. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Louise.
David, in your opinion, why have the costs blown out so much?
Well, the trial of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which was always meant to be for all children up to the age of 14, the original estimate was that there'd be around 5,000 to 5,500 children, and it now looks like there's considerably more than that. And most of the blowout is caused by increased and unexpected numbers who have developmental delay, but in particular the very large number of children that have autism spectrum disorder. About 48% of the children in the scheme have that diagnosis, which was more than was anticipated when the scheme was when the trial was designed 3 years ago.
David, has this identified, I suppose, a lack of accurate data on children with disabilities like autism?
To a certain extent, that is true. We relied, when we made the original projections, on information from the statistical sets that we calculate in order to make reports to various levels of government. So these were the number of children that were known to us, plus an allowance for the children who may not have been known to us, but may still have had a need and would have been eligible. How big the gap was between children known to us and children who would be eligible was a bit of guesswork. The Productivity Commission in 2011, which did all the work to lead up to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, estimated that there would be 440,000 people nationally and 32,000 people in South Australia who would be eligible for the scheme. What it's turning out to look like is that there are more children than were expected, but less adults. So the final figure of 32,000 is probably right, but more of them are in the child categories than in the adult categories. So that's the basic reason.
Is the unexpected increase in autism coverage the only reason for the cost blowout?
There are a couple of reasons. Autism is the single biggest obvious reason. We also historically have only ever taken children into the disability sphere if they have global developmental delay, which means delay, this is young children we're talking about under the age of 5. If children have developed a delay in one area of development like speech or mobility like walking, that's tended to not be brought into disability until it resolves itself as being an ongoing problem, because many children vary obviously in the timing of their reaching their developmental milestones. But when children have so-called global developmental delay, which means they're late in reaching all of their milestones, their mobility ones, their language ones, and so on, then that has historically been what we've included. The National Disability Insurance Scheme has been more inclusive. It's included children who have developmental delay in just one area of development. So there has been a 13 or 14% blowout. Blowout's probably not the right word, but there's been a 13 to 14% larger number in the developmental delay area. But the number in autism has been significantly higher than was anticipated. And the National Disability Insurance Scheme is looking into why these numbers, because it's not just in South Australia we're having that. It's obvious in South Australia because we have a children's trial, but it's happening throughout the country.
Now, David, you've stated previously that because of the lack of funding, only must-do cases are being prioritised. What do you mean by must-do?
Well, basically, we have unmet need that we record, and we're very public. We do it on our website. Everybody can see it. We're unique in Australia in doing that, and I think, you get some brownie points for being open and clear about it. The unmet need actually identifies it according to four categories, but the highest level of need is somebody who is homeless or at risk of homelessness or at immediate risk of harm to themselves or to others. So it's obviously people with disabilities who have challenging behaviours and may hurt themselves if they're not appropriately supported, or may hurt other people like family members if they're not adequately supported. So the must-dos are really those sorts of situations where, for example, if a person with an intellectual disability living at home with their parents, they may be in their 40s, the parents may be quite old. If the parents are no longer able to care because they've had to go into a nursing home or because they've passed away, then clearly that is a must-do. The person with a disability cannot be unsupported. So there are certain situations, a bit like emergency admissions into hospital, where you can't say, well, we're full up, we won't do anything for this person, you have to act. So that's what I describe as the must-dos, and that's really the sort of level that we're operating at the moment. We deal with the crises and we deal with the situations that will lead to harm or homelessness.
I'm speaking with Dr. David Caudrey about the funding issues currently faced by Disability SA in the rollout of the NDIS. David, as we said, we're looking at a $60 million blowout of cost. How will the department fund the increase in demand?
Well, we have to do the best we can, and one of the mechanisms that we use is what I've just described. We only fund those things that we must fund. The $60 million, by the way, is $20 million per year over 3 years. So it's not $60 million in 1 year. And what that really represents is it's not a funding cut. It's basically the growth in funding is not keeping up with the demand for services. The growth in disability services is 6 or 7%, the demand. And then the increase in funding may be only 3 or 4%. Obviously, that gap means that, and we're talking about $20 million in a $600 million budget. That gap of $20 million has to be found by doing a number of things. One is the making sure that we only fund priority things, like I've described. But the other things are basically the measures that we take internally. I mean, we do things like having to allow disability waiting lists to grow. We doing reassessment of services to existing clients, but we don't take services away when they're needed, obviously. And then we basically look at our own staffing levels and have cut that back considerably. So we absolutely look for reducing administration and the central office and regional office staffing complements before we look at cutting any services to clients.
David, I just want to ask, what happens to those people who fall outside of your priority criteria? What is left for them?
Usually what happens is that people they're not left unsupported. The unmet need is mostly about people wanting a larger amount of service than they've currently got. So, for example, somebody may want a supported accommodation place. They may want 24-hour care in, say, a group home. What they've got at the moment may be 20 hours a week of support in their own family home. Now, that puts the family under a lot of pressure because the person is getting older and needier and often has challenging behaviours. So it's quite a demanding situation for family members who are, informal family carers. And that's why they end up on a waiting list. Now, it doesn't mean, or on an unmet need list. That doesn't mean to say that they're not getting any services, and certainly nothing is being taken away from them. The issue is really just how quickly and with what priority we can put in the extra services that people clearly need. And that's really part of the reason we're signing on. We've signed on to the National Disability Insurance Scheme because basically the scheme will inject an enormous increase, $600 or $700 million per annum of extra funding from the Commonwealth will be coming into South Australia and will be therefore It means that all of the unmet need can be addressed and that people will be far better off once the National Disability Insurance Scheme is here fully, which will be in 2018-19, and we've been looking at how we phase it in going from trial to full scheme.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, David.
No, not at all. That's a great pleasure.
Thank you. Disability SA Executive Director David Caudrey discussing the funding challenges currently faced